unpatched systems, and outdated servers. People think like I've seen, and I said this in I think the Tampa. Besides Tampa, I did an engagement for a financial firm, a small credit union, and their ATM systems were Windows XP embedded. And I don't know how they did on their PCI DSS audit. It wasn't in a CDE environment. So it was just sometimes these small credit unions, this is another whole ball of wax of a conversation. You have to be careful who you bank with. That's why I kept my money under my bed. But you just have to be really, really careful and do your own due diligence on them if you're going for small credit unions. A lot of people like them because they get better interest rates. They do, better deals than larger institutions. But just be careful because not only them, like a lot of people running outdated servers like Server 2008, 2012. I can't believe that's like old now. It's crazy. I remember when that just came out. End of life OSs, Windows XP, Windows 7, 2003 servers, vulnerable web frameworks, right? There's stale network firmwares, routers, switches, firewalls, APs, etc. Unmanaged IoT and OT devices on a flat network, your TVs, your thermostat, your microwave, especially like these fancy offices, they try to get all their high-tech stuff on the internet. I was able to compromise an IoT device through a refrigerator and pivot into a network, right? Because it's on a flat network, it's not segmented with VLANs. So I have a whole bunch of cool stories. So gap number 5 is poor asset visibility, shadow IT, like I said about that Raspberry Pi. Forgotten cloud VMs, storage buckets, which reside in the public internet, right? Old dev test servers still running in production. That's a big one, and that happens more often than you think. And then rogue access points. And this happens a ton, especially like I did a wireless engagement about a month ago, and someone was testing a new wireless network that they plugged into their desk. It was an on-site visit. And they just, were testing it just to see how things performed. Before they put it onto their wireless controller and put it into their mesh, into their topology. And they left it hanging out there, and it was a rogue device, and people were trying to connect to it, but it wasn't connecting to the internet, right? Because it was just like contained, and he was just testing some things. I don't know, but and yeah, so that was that, and they just left it there, and people complaining. And then when I went in there, I was able to do some fun stuff to clone and pivot and broadcast that network for folks to try to connect to. And unmanaged endpoints without EDR coverage. This is another big one, right? Maybe they had a computer that they ran CrowdStrike, MDE, whatever you want to call it, and now what they're doing is they re-image that machine for later use for a new user, but they have it still on their bench of machines that they re-image, but they're still connected to the internet or the network because they're plugged into a managed switch that connects to uplinks to the full network. And now it's an unmanaged, so it's a pivot. If someone gets onto that machine, it's easy to compromise it because there's no alerts that's alerting. So these are things that every day we see. Not every day, not that one, but you know what I mean. Yeah, we can go ahead and go to the next one. So how attackers move through your environment. So obviously, first things first, recon information gathering is numero uno all the time, right? OSINT, LinkedIn scraping, DNS subdomain enumeration, Shodan, credential leak searches. You can figure out where you want to go ahead and look for those leaks. Initial access, get that through phishing, password spraying, expose VPN, RDP sessions, or any public-facing vulnerability. Persistence, Privesc, lateral movement, and then the impact. The impact is obviously data exfiltration, ransomware deployment, credential dumping, or business disruption. Go ahead and go to the next one, please. So why does penetration testing matter, right? So the question is not if your organization will be tested. It is whether you test it first or an attacker does. I like this phrase, and I use this a lot, and even on my, briefing calls or just like getting to know someone, because you will be a target. And people are like, oh, I'm too small. I have a funny story. I have a friend that's in South Florida. He inherited his parents' or his dad's company. And I always told him, not the dentist, this is a different story, but I always told him, dude, like you need to get a pen test. And they said, he's like, oh, I don't need that. I don't need that. I don't need it. You can see where I'm going. And I don't know why, because it's not like a great mate that I just talk to all the time. It was like one day, I don't know if it was just something that was inside of me. I just Googled that company, right? And it's a public, and crazy enough, they got ransomed. They got ransomed because they needed to be PCI DSS, and it was a flat network. But it was like, and I text him right away. I'm like, dude, what happened here? And he goes, oh, I should have listened. I never reached out to you because I knew I was embarrassed. And it's like, it doesn't matter if you're this small or a giant in the sea, you're a target. Like if someone doesn't like you, someone knows a hacker. Trust me, someone knows someone that can do some damage. So just make sure you can get your stuff tested before the attackers do. It's a God honest truth. It is what it is. But so just find gaps before those attackers do. Test your defenses, validate security controls, and then meet compliance requirements. And in this case, I don't even know how. I think he was paying off the auditors because no way he was PCI DSS compliant. But and then reduce insurance premiums. Go ahead and go to the next one. So here we go. Excuse me. So these are some real world case studies that has really happened for me and my team. So go ahead and go to the first one, this initial pen test, internal pen test, excuse me. I don't know why it's really tiny on my end. So this one was through an ADCS exploit. Correct me if I'm wrong, folks. And this was a law firm with 85 employees, a Windows 80 environment. So I want to ask folks on here that are pen testers or previous, whatever, if you're working in this industry, like how often are you able to run your responder, get a hash, crack that, and get domain admin that way? I really want to hear, like maybe after the conference, or just hit me up. I'm really, really curious because I feel like ADCS is a big attack vector. And that's why I think a lot of the CTFs and training is pushing this way. And so ADCS is definitely a fun one. But yeah, the foothold was obviously anytime you're doing any kind of internal engagement, I think this was a non-assumed breach. If I remember this one, because we do a lot of pen tests, I would have to go back, and I did this one I think in February or March. So I'm old, so I forget. But I'm not that old. But standard domain user, phishing simulation. We did a phishing simulation for this client. We did ADCS enumeration. You use your certify, and then we found a ESC1 template. And definitely under 40, right? No, I'm not under 40. I'm 40. But so ADCS ESC1. Now I can't even say that quick. And then we got a TGT to domain admin, and then we did DC sync plus getting all the hashes. Yes. Law firms are terrible. Yeah, they are. Yeah, I'll keep my comments to myself. But yeah, they can be a nuisance, to say the least. But yeah, what we did, we got initial access. Then we, ADCS enumeration, started enumerating, and then we were able to find this template. Then we're able to privask via PK init, and then we got full domain compromise. So that was, that was a real case study that we were able to do for a client or on a client. And it was really, really interesting. Tea time. Yeah, tea time for fun. Yeah, I don't really drink coffee, so I'm like hooked on these green teas. It doesn't matter what time of the day it is. Like I have friends like, dude, you can drink that at 10 o'clock at night and go to sleep. I'm like, yeah, my body's like addicted to that stuff. But yeah, go ahead and go to the next one. Tea time. That's a good one. I like that. Tea time. I should get a shirt that says tea time. But a wireless, because wireless is probably, if it's not internal AD stuff, wireless is probably one of my favorite kinds of hacking and pen testing and all that stuff. So here we did, and this was for a restaurant. And this was like a one-off because the funny thing is on this one, it was an interesting, I was back in my old town or my old neighborhood in South Florida because I'm not living in South Florida anymore. I went to go eat and I had a hacker shirt on. I don't know which shirt I had. I had one of my nerd shirts. And the owner came up to me and said, hey, like, do you hack? And I'm like, oh man, is this like are you like part of the feds? And I was like, yeah, I have a penetration testing. I like to try to segue into pen testing because if you don't know, so I don't want to frighten people. I'm like, yeah, like we do some security assessment, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, we want to get our network tested and our wireless specifically because our POS system is connected to our wireless network. And there was only like one hardwired device in there, which was a switch that goes to the POS system, but everything else was wireless. But anyhow, we tested their wireless. We obviously you start out with your recon, you run your Airmon NG and do all that stuff, or Wi-Fi or whatever you're using. For this one, it was a really small engagement, so I didn't use no Wi-Fi Pineapple. I didn't do any fancy stuff. And then WPA2 pre-shared key SSID via Aero Dump NG. And then we, get your four-way handshake, get that. Captioned in about 3 minutes. And the reason, because there was a lot of activity and we did some deauthentication. And then we were able to crack the password in about 22 minutes. I would say 20, 25 minutes, but I put it in the middle, 22. And then we were able to pivot because it was on the same network as the POS system on a 24-bit subnet, which that's normally the default if you're running, like I said, 254 hosts or less. And then we're able to access some data on the POS system and the cardholder data. So, and this is something I just remembered. Remember, maybe I shouldn't say that because, hackers can probably put two and two together, but it was really, really interesting stuff. So what we did was do some wireless recon, credential capture, network pivot, and then the impact demonstration, how we were able to enumerate the POS terminals. And it was running it was, like I said, it was running outdated Windows embedded with no EDR. And then we're able to access some shares, which they had how they did their share was really ghetto, I think. They had like a laptop, Toshiba. There was an old Toshiba laptop that they had like a little like Western Digital hard drive. And then I guess it was like one of the guys in there that thought they knew computers, and then just shared out the drive. And then they pointed the logs to a UNC path that it was like, and it was all open. Like you do whack, and then everyone can get there. You don't get prompts for like your credentials to authenticate, which again, no bueno. But yeah, you can go ahead and go to the next one. I want to try to wrap it up quick now because I can talk for ages. And the physical pen test, OSINT recon, tailgating, implant, C2 callback, and then full access. And you can go on to the next one. I know we have 2 minutes. Is that the countdown? So, yep. So like the good news, obviously everything is preventable, right? Here's what I would recommend. If anyone here, if you want to ask your family, tell your friends, your coworkers, whatever, no matter what, MFA everywhere, strong password policy for your organization, patch management, network segmentation, no matter what, right? So if you're running a small organization, put everything in different subnets, and security monitoring. EDR on all your endpoints, centralize your login, and you should be good. All right, we can go to the next one. And then some quick wins today. If you apply these on this beautiful Saturday morning, you'll be good. Tell your families and friends. Like enable MFA, patch your systems, run your backups, even at your house, right? Like this is not only about security. It's like if you're running a computer in your house, a laptop, make sure you have maybe a small little NAS or something that you can offload your computer backup, or you can obviously back up to the cloud. I don't really do that. I have 3 NASs in my house that I have my own little private cloud. But and then train your employees, train your people, because I think that's the number one exploit for folks. And at the end, get a pen test to verify, make sure all this stuff is done. You can go to the next one. All right. So a little bit about ISP security. What we do. I just want to throw this out there. Those folks that maybe never heard of me or never heard of ISP security, we're located in Central Florida. We're in Orlando. We do all types of pen testing, network pen testing, red team operations, web app, cloud, mobile, wireless, AD, purple team. And now we also do like some blue team stuff, SOC as a service and MDR and stuff like that, and vCISO and security advisory and stuff like that. So if there's anyone that's interested in that, please reach out and I'll be more than happy to discuss that further. You can go to the next one. And yeah, the pen test services, this is pretty much all we, you can go to the next one, our services. I don't want to bore everyone. This is all like the vCISO services and security advisory. You can go to the next one. Managed SOC services. These are all the additional stuff that we offer. You can go ahead and go to the next one. And final takeaways. SMBs are the number one target, no matter what anyone says. Attackers know you have less security. So if you're an SMB, if you work for an SMB, or if you have family that works at an SMB, let them know. Please educate them. This is what this is all about. They can get exploited just like a big guy, and they're easier to exploit, and they get exploited every day. The gaps are basic: weak passwords, no MFA, misconfigured AD, unpatched systems. The attack chain is predictable: recon, initial access, prevent, blah, blah, blah. Prevention, just do some patching, do some MFA, segmentation, monitor your stuff, and you should be good. And then test before the attackers do. This whole thing is get your network, get your infrastructure, get your web app, whatever you have tested. And then penetration testing finds the gaps in your defenses before, it can become a real incident. So I'm going to the next one. I think that's it. Is that it? Yep, that's it. So I want to say thank you, for everyone that listened. If you have any questions, you know where to find me. You can hit me up after the conference or, on LinkedIn or whatever. And thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. Cheers, guys.
No, that was awesome, Pat. So huge thank you for coming on. And we actually have a few more minutes left, so I'm going to hit you with a few questions I saw in the chat. First question I saw from Rihanna was, will Pat buy Rihanna coffee at DEF CON?
Oh, yeah. I can buy you a coffee. I'll drink green tea, but I'll buy you a coffee.
There we go. And then let's see. Another question I saw was, do you make or use your own C2 during your pen testing?
So I have my own. A friend of mine developed it, but then I also use like Mythic and open source stuff as well. It all depends on the budget that they have. And, Cobalt Strike, I have a copy of Cobalt Strike. Mythic, I use Mythic. I've used Sliver, and then I have one that a friend of mine developed for us internally. I'll use that at times if the time permits. But yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, I mean, I know some folks, it's depending on the type of pen test you're doing, there may or may not really be a C2 that gets stood up. It more might just be like doing configurations or seeing what data you can take, and then it's just going to that organization's kind of call it almost like a Dropbox in a sense. So call that in a sense C2 as well. So no, that's awesome. I swear there's one more question in here.
Yeah, go for it.
Sorry for the tea time. Yeah, so every time I go, I'm gonna take a drink, I was like, oh, tea time. So I was just being funny with it. But you should totally make a shirt that says like Security Pat it's tea time. And then like, I think that'd be actually pretty cool.
And it's funny because
So
Rihanna said that when we did one of our podcasts together, she's like spilling the tea or something like that. So like, because she knows I drink tea, so she's
uh,
awesome.
oh, what was another one? I guess I have one more question for you too. Oh, one was another question before I ask you mine was, have you ever thought about building an OSINT dashboard, or do you guys have specific OSINT tools that maybe you have a favorite one to use?
So to answer your first question, no, we don't have really an OSINT dashboard. I just do it, I guess, quote unquote, old school. Like I have all my tools that I'll use, and I'll just start scraping stuff. And especially with the big AI these days,
Yeah.
I have created stuff with Claude that helps out with some of the process. So, your traditional, you can use hunter.io, get their email, see if there exists, use, the mayor's tool for like Office 365 and user enumeration, see if they, what's out there for that. But it all depends because I think a lot of people get, especially clients, like, oh, I want an external network pen test. And then they expect me to go bananas. I'm like, okay, external network pen test is giving me a group of IPs, and this is the scope, So that's why I like to educate folks on that. And correct me if I'm wrong, if you or anyone here, like an OSINT investigation or OSINT pen test, or we want to call it, I think is different than an external network pen test.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a topic for another day, but or an argument or whatever you want to debate. But yeah, any other questions?
Yeah, there's a few more. So, I mean, one, super excited. So it sounds like are you attending both Black Hat and DEF CON this year? And if
Yes,
so,
sir.
where can we find you there? Any specific rooms?
So yeah, I'm going to be actually participating and volunteering at the Red Team Village. I forget what day I am. I think I just got the schedule like this week, but I checked, but I forgot. I think it's on Thursday, but
Cool.
I can always make that announcement on LinkedIn, or just hit me up if you guys are there, and I'm more than happy to like meet up with you, shake a hand, have a chat. And I'm pretty noticeable when I'm walking around. So just don't be scared to say hello. Like I'm just another human being, just like Andrew. It's like anyone else. I'm not better or worse. So.
And then obviously with our huge support here for Next Gen, when you have folks that come up to you, maybe specifically in the pen testing world, what's one piece of advice that you'd give somebody trying to break into pen testing specifically?
Ooh, so that's a lovely question. So every I say 5 years it changes, right? So back in my days, so what I would say for folks today in 2026, before you get into pen testing, I think setting up just going back to like the UNC paths and doing all these basic network VMware stuff or VM stuff, setting up Active Directory, setting up your environments, or setting up your own IS servers or Apache servers or Linux servers, and understanding where this technology resides and what services and applications reside on top. Because I've seen people try to, swim laps before they can crawl. And I feel like there's that gap, and it's true. Like I've interviewed pen testers, and I'm like, okay, what is FSMA rows? And that's basic stuff in AD. Or like if I'm doing a NetDOM query, what am I actually looking for when I'm seeing like a GC or a read-only domain controller, or all these little things that I think that like are skipped when you're learning pen testing. And a lot of these courses, like they focus on the engagement itself versus like the preliminary stuff that are needed. So set up your own stuff, like set up your own lab at home. I wouldn't say hack the box, try hack me, those things, because all you do in there is downloading a VPN file, and then what? What is Diffie-Hellman? When you're connecting to the VPN, what are you actually doing?
I think it's you hit it heavily. It's just like there's such kind of like those small fundamentals that sometimes people think that, oh, these are just quick skipping stones. Like a really strong foundation, no matter what path you go down, is really going to put you, I think, ahead of the curve. Because just like you said, like on many engagements, sometimes you're not finding that 0-day or that one line of 5,000 pieces of code. You're finding something that's maybe super minuscule. That's like, oh man, like their website's configured incorrectly with I can do a simple SQL injection and get into this. Like, and it's not going to take anyone that has like the OSCP or anything drastic or crazy, but those different skills are going to help you out. But yeah, having a strong foundation and having those kind of building blocks that you kind of just like riding a bike. They say, oh, you never forget. You always got to keep trying. Yeah, hit those skills when it comes into kind of bettering yourself. So no, I think that was awesome, Pat. And yeah, we're so excited to see you. We're so glad that you were here to hop on. I'm gonna make sure I see you as well to get you a Ginger Hacker Initiative sticker as well.
Love it.
And no, man. Last question before I kick you loose is Pat attending B-Sides Vegas this year or again?
No, so I'm not, because I'm going there with a friend that's not in cyber, that he's going to hang out with me on Saturday, Sunday, Monday. And so, yeah, I won't be at Vegas. I'll be at just Black Hat and DEF CON, because then he flies home Tuesday or Wednesday morning. So, like, we're going to do, like, normal touristy stuff first couple days. So, no, I will not be at B-Side Vegas.
All good. No, I totally get that. Yeah, we're at Black Hat and DEF CON this year, so it's super exciting. But I mean, being in Arizona, it's like the Vegas trip. Like you can do Vegas in 3 days. Anything after 3 days, it starts you start to miss your bed. So it's just like,
Yep. No, 1,000%. So, yeah. Like I said, if there's any questions after this, that anything that I talked about, please hit me up anywhere that you can find me. I'm more than happy to answer as many questions as I can.
I have time for one more question and one more pop in the chat. What is your opinion on VulnHub over TryHackMe and Hack the Box?
Ooh, that's lovely. So, all right. So VulnLab, for those folks that don't know what VulnLab is it VulnHub or VulnLab? Now
the questions, I think VulnHub, I think it's VulnLab.
Yeah, VulnHub. VulnHub is the one that you just, like the old OSCP, like the playground that used to connect to those machines that you download from there. So that's a lovely question. I think even getting VulnHub machines, so you have to configure those. So that's good, right? When you download them, sometimes they're host only, sometimes they're configured as NAT, sometimes they're bridged. So it's like, now if something doesn't work, you can't ping it. Now it's like, okay, am I on the same network? Is my attack machine on the same network as my VM? So that gives you a little outside of that box thinking of configuring it. So that's definitely good. What is my opinion on it over? I think starting out with that would be awesome. Because, I always say, go start out with Metasploitable 2. And that's the same kind of concept, right? Downloading a VM and installing it in your VirtualBox or VMware. Excuse me. And then I would say, like, depending on where you are in your career, like I'm assuming if you're asking this, maybe you're in your earliest stages. TryHackMe is good, but me personally, this is my own personal opinion, Hack the Box is a lot better. And I say that now because if you asked me that 3 years ago, I'd be like, oh, you have to start with TryHackMe because Hack the Box is it's a little more crazy. But now the fact that Hack the Box caught up with the times, like, oh, I need to get people started out here, and here before they get into the craziness. So I think going from VulnLab and going into Hack the Box would be a great journey. For
sure. Well, awesome, Pat. Well, that's all I have before we move to our next presentation. So amazing open note in the start to this amazing CyberLab Con 2026. Everybody, don't forget, we have our amazing QR code up here. That's how you're going to be winning and getting some amazing giving back to Next Gen, as well as getting some raffles for every $5 you donate for some amazing kick butt prizes. Well, Pat, thank you again so much for coming on. I'm going to let you drop, and as we move to our next presentation here, that is going to be starting in the next 2 minutes. So as that goes on, thanks so much, man. I'll talk to you later,
guys. Pat. See you soon. Cheers.
All right. Our next presentation, who I am very excited to invite on here in 2 seconds once I finish the amazing intro, is Katie Paxton Fear. She is a cybersecurity researcher, educator, and an internationally recognized speaker who is passionate about making offensive security approachable and inspiring the next generation of cybersecurity professionals. Known for her engaging presentations and ability to translate complex technical concepts into practical insights, Katie has become a respected voice in the cybersecurity community. With expertise ranging from web application security, ethical hacking, vulnerability research, and security education, she brings a unique blend of deep technical knowledge and infectious enthusiasm to every stage. Whenever uncovering the latest attack techniques or sharing lessons from the front lines of security research, Katie empowers the audience to think critically, stay curious, and continue pushing the boundaries of cybersecurity. And I'm going to go back into my little back end web here. And I'm going to grab Katie. All right. Katie, do I have you? She may have stepped away to get ready. So while we wait for her to come back, don't forget, everybody, we are there. Hey, you're back. Yay, that was quick. How's it going?
It's going well. My webcam suddenly changed to my virtual webcam. I don't know why.
Oh no! in great cyber focus, it's like, oh man, cyber issues right away. Yay! Well, fantastic. Well, I'm so excited to have you on. With you being here, I will just say this real quick. So everyone, please remember, we're here for the amazing Next Gen. We have the amazing raffle prizes with every first 100 donations of $5 or more. You will also be receiving the backdoors and breaches. So make sure you scan that QR code. We'll leave it there for about 2-3 seconds. We also have that QR code on the top right. But with that, Katie, are you excited for today's talk and getting to be on with CyberLab Con?
I am. I will say that as somebody who I like, as much as you have just pitched me as an expert, I am not an expert in all things cybersecurity. So I'm hoping to share something that I've learned for the next generation, because we're always learning. We're always growing, and learning never stops in cybersecurity.
Well, I'm so excited to hear your talk. So yeah, everybody, scan that QR code. Make sure you guys putting in, like I said, the first 100 get the backdoors and breaches card game. So if you've never played that before, it is so amazing. It is such a fun. We bring it into our SOC and we play with our analysts, and it's always a.
Did you see that there's a PvP version now as well of backdoors and breaches? It's so cool.
No, I know we'll probably be playing it at Black Hat and DEF CON, especially inside New Village. So make sure if you're there, you come by and say hi to us. We'll have some tables playing it. But with that, I want to kick it to your slide. I will quickly push myself. We're going to do this because I think it's easier to make sure we're not in the way of your slides. I'm going to go ahead and jump into the back, and I'll be doing some cool commenting. And as you're dropping in some information, be posting stuff in. But without further ado, Katie Paxton.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for being here and listening to me waffle about AI. So I do not like AI. I have been pretty clear that I'm not a big AI person. I was super skeptical about AI, especially in offensive security. And I was wrong. Like, in short, I was very wrong. I really didn't understand it as well as I thought I did. And there is nothing wrong with being wrong. Like, nothing wrong with it. This is a talk I originally gave at Hacking APIs Con. I wasn't sure if I was going to give it again, though, because I was like, man, this is me just talking about how, like, the basics of AI. And, like, this is stuff that I feel like everybody knows. I'm like the latecomer because I was really skeptical about AI. But I decided to give it again because I've been doing some more wannabe security research. I should say my job title is LARPing security researcher, not because anybody is like, Katie's not a real security researcher, but because I don't think I'm a real security researcher. Can we go to the next slide? So if you don't already know who I am, my name is Dr. Katie. I'm a security advocate at a company called SemGrep. I have a PhD in AI and cybersecurity. Don't worry, I know how ironic that is. But I did get that before AI was cool, right? That was pre-ChatGPT. So you definitely know I wrote my thesis myself. But if you know who I am, it's not for anything I've done academically. It's definitely for what I do outside of my work. So I am a part-time bug bounty hunter. I specialize in API hacking and more broadly now, like interconnected systems, which often include AI. I am a speaker, a trainer. I do a lot about teaching people how to get started in cybersecurity and kind of demystifying and making security just a little bit more approachable for people who feel very overwhelmed by it. And like I said, I'm LARPing as a security researcher. And this is the story of some security research I did, because SemGrep has a security research team, but they're all too busy doing actual research. So I am the backup security researcher. Next slide, please. So one is I'm going to talk about how I got into this entire mess and the actual story I'm going to tell. Two, I'm going to be talking a bit about turning SAST findings into bug bounty reports / CVEs using Claude. I'm going to talk about reporting the vulnerabilities and what happened next. And then I'm going to tell you how am I supposed to learn from this presentation, Katie? I can't believe I came and listened to this presentation just to hear you talk about AI. And what about Mythos anyway? We'll get into it. Next slide. So this is the story of how me, AI skeptic, worked with Claude and found some vulnerabilities. That's fundamentally the story I'm going to tell. By the way, this is Shrek themed. Yes, I do have like videos in here and GIFs. I have no idea if they're going to work. But fair warning, there is some audio visual elements. Next slide. So this is the mesh that started it all. This is Drew. Drew is one of the founders of SemGrep. So when he emails you and sends you a Slack message saying, hey, how do I send a vulnerability report to Apple? I can email them, but I don't really know what I'm doing. One, Drew is messaging you, you answer. It's the founder of one of the founders of the company. And he didn't know how much Apple pays for bug bounty reports. And I really like this answer by my colleague Kurt. By the way, my colleague Kurt does some excellent work, especially in AI. Strongly recommend all of his work. He's got some great blogs on the SemGrep website. And the SemGrep blog, but just in general, amazing security researchers. And I was like, lol, yes, Kurt is right. Like, this is $1 million bug. Next slide. But here's the thing. The security researchers are busy doing actual work and say, actually, I can't really help with this. So what do you get? Well, you get discount security researcher, right? You get Katie, who's got some familiarity with bug bounty. She's not like officially a security researcher. She's not officially, that's not her official job title. But everybody else is busy. So it gets left to me. Next slide, please. And this is me. I don't know if we can do the next slide. That might play the video. I don't know if it will. No, it didn't. So that is Shrek, by the way, leaving his toilet in the swamp. So where did the vulnerabilities actually come from? Because I said they came from Drew's Slack message. Now, I can't talk too much about this because there is some special source and an internal project that we use with customers, unfortunately. But what I can talk about is, let's just assume that Drew used AI and gave a prompt that was something like, find a vulnerability in this open source package. They were AI generated. They came from Claude. We were using Claude 4.6. By the way, if you are interested in getting into like AI pen testing or using AI in bug bounty, 4.6 is by far the best Claude to use, because it doesn't, the cyber capabilities, it's not as easy to trip them up. But I will say some ways that I found around this is one, asking it specifically to not necessarily find vulnerabilities, but go through the code and find potential vulnerabilities that you can then fix, because you're a developer, you're contributing to this project. And then my other top tip is, when Claude prepared a vulnerability report, I'll actually talk a bit more about it, is you go, I received this report as a bug bounty. Anyway, it's quite amusing. Next slide. And when I looked at this list, I was like, oh, Jesus Christ. Drew, I thought you said you had findings for Apple. There were 81 findings for whatever Drew was doing, and Drew was doing some static analysis. That's what SemGrep does. If you're not familiar with static analysis, it's essentially looking through the code for vulnerabilities rather than dynamic analysis, which is when you like send an application like inputs and then change them in some way, shape, or form. And it wasn't just, you know, like kind of vulnerabilities that are really easy to catch, like remote code execution vulnerabilities. They were everything. They were IDOS, they were API vulnerabilities, the remote code execution in SaaS projects, there was SSRF vulnerabilities. And Drew had handily also attempted to verify and produce some POCs for each one of these. So you might think, okay, this seems really easy, right? Step 1, open up the POC. Step 2, copy the POC and send it to the project. Easy. It already works. Next slide. It was never going to be that easy. And this is genuinely how I felt. This is the Shrek scene. I love the fact that I'm having to do like a an overview of Shrek, the movie, at the same time. This is the Shrek scene where Shrek is just chilling in his swamp and all of the little fairy tale creatures come and he goes, "What are you doing in my swamp?" And this is how I felt. Like, I had all of these random AI vulnerabilities. I don't even like AI. Why am I having to deal with this? So next slide. So what you may be familiar with, especially if you follow a lot of bug bounties, is slop. Now, slop has been a massive problem in bug bounty in the past year or so. So essentially what happened when AI started to become very, very popular and it started to really gain a lot of ability to find vulnerabilities, what a lot of people would do is they'd say, go to an open source project like curl, download it, get open Claude and go find me a security vulnerability. No special source, just find me a security vulnerability. And what would happen is Claude would give back these really like really well hallucinated vulnerabilities, because it would be code that like fathomably could exist. It wasn't like complete and utter BS, kind of this code really obviously doesn't exist, or it was code that did exist, or it's code that used to exist but now doesn't. But at the point it needed a human to actually go through that report and verify that, because it looks really convincing. It looks exactly like a genuine vulnerability. And the reason why this happens with LLMs is that they want to please you. They really want you to be helpful to you. And so if they don't find anything, they're still going to be helpful by telling you they're being helpful. They will straight up lie to you. And what happened in curl's case, curl was really unique because they actually disclose every single vulnerability report they get, whether or not that's a valid vulnerability report, whether that's maybe a vulnerability but they're choosing not to fix it because it's not a security issue, for example, it's maybe just a regular bug, or it's something that like users of curl have to keep in mind. Like it's not like an insecure default, but it's a, hey, you can use curl in this dangerous way. And so they report all of them. So there's some really interesting data, and they actually spoke up about this first, which is that their HackerOne program was being absolutely, literally just slop. Everything was slop. All the vulnerability reports were slop. They went from getting like really high quality reports to basically getting absolute garbage. They ended up turning off their HackerOne bug bounty because they were getting like so much additional work for zero additional security. And when I was looking at these findings from AI and I saw the fact they had a POC associated with them, I was really thinking about this problem, because as somebody who is involved in bug bounty, you know, I've also seen my reports take forever to get triaged because there is so many vulnerabilities in the queue. I've had situations where like I've had a real vulnerability, but for whatever reason it can't be reproduced, so it ends up kind of falling to the bottom of the triage line, and then no one ever really looks at it. However, on the same kind of coin here, curl actually got early access to Mythos as part of the kind of what's called a Glasswing project that Anthropic was doing with a few like well-known cybersecurity companies. And Mythos actually found a vulnerability in curl, but just one vulnerability in curl, which is really interesting because especially if you looked at the marketing around Mythos and some of the results it got from other projects, there were a lot more than just one vulnerability it found. And by the way, these two blogs are really interesting to see the dichotomy of where AI and cybersecurity, particularly in vulnerability finding, is at the moment, where you've got an awful lot of slop, but there are models that are able to find really good stuff. And when I was looking at these, I was like, man, I don't want to be part of the slot problem. I can't just report these. I need to verify them. You know, trust but verify. Next slide. So how do you actually report a vulnerability to a project? Well, step one is to confirm the vulnerability actually exists. As we just mentioned, that's important. Step two, find the security contact. So that could be a bug bounty program, that could be a security at email, that could be a VDP disclosure. You give them your step one, the steps to reproduce the vulnerability. You explain the impact of the finding in context to their software and business. You press send, you obviously get ignored, and then you resort to random people who work there. You might be thinking, Katie, that seems kind of defeatist. Don't you think people care about security? No. Quite often when you report security findings, particularly if they don't have a bug bounty program and vulnerability disclosure process, it takes some work to actually get those vulnerabilities fixed. And it's a huge problem in security research. By the way, shout out to my friend Casey John Ellis, who founded BugCrowd. He has founded disclose.io. If you're ever struggling to find a security contact and actually like disclose a vulnerability responsibly, it's a great tool. So step one is of course the most important here. I'm dealing with AI findings. I need to verify they actually exist. Next slide. Next slide. So this is one of these findings. So this affected redash, get redash, and it was a path traversal to RCE script runner. And you can see it's been fully verified. And you can see here all of the user supplied query text run, bunch of SAST, and it tells us what to do. Look at the code. This, by the way, is a false positive. This is not a real finding. Because while there is an RCE, when you go and you look into this, you realize it is intentionally insecure. So a lot of these findings were situation like findings where this was an intended feature of this particular library, not security problems. A lot of applications allow you to do insecure things. Just responding to folks, I cannot see any movement, any place to move my slides. Just FYI. Sorry. Next slide. Sorry. So, okay, quick primer on SaaS so we can actually start to understand this. So in SaaS, we have these really three big concepts. The first is sources, the second is sinks, and the third is taint. These all sound super technical and very cybery. They're really not. So a source is just where it's a function in an application where untrusted data enters it. So this could be like a HTTP request header or a parameter or a form field or an environment variable or a database read. These are just places user input comes from. And sinks is what happens downstream. So sinks are functions where dangerous operations happen. So this is things like an exec, right? This could be where SQL queries are being run directly. This could be where HTML is rendered. So the source is where bad data comes from, and the sink is where it ends up. And when we talk about the idea of traveling from a source to a sink, this is called taint. This is the contamination which travels from these inputs to where it goes to a dangerous function. And taint analysis is the kind of process of tracking this taint through all of this. So what SAS does is not so much go through code, find like regex, right, where you're using it. It's more about understanding how data flows from untrustworthy sources to dangerous actions. And this happens across files. It can happen from libraries. It can happen through multiple projects. There's a bunch of different ways this taint can happen, but this is primarily what we're doing in SAS. When we get a result like this, what we're saying is, hey, there is a source. If we could go back to the last slide. So where it says source, user supplied query text, this is saying, hey, this is where, in this case, on post API query results, and then the query here, this is where we are getting some user input. It's then saying it's going to script.py on line 70, then it's going to run query on line 72, then it's calling a function called query to script path, then it's going on line 9 to an OS path join, blah, 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 until it gets to the very bottom here where it says sync subprocess.check output script shell. This is essentially telling us these are the files in which we have to travel through in order to go from this post request to API/query results to the output of this, which is the subprocess check output and then script OS path join. Next slide. And the next slide. So to break it down, this is what we're looking at. So one, our source is an API request that we have to make. So we need to make a post request to API/query results, and we need to supply query, and then we need to supply some data here. Here you can see we're doing like just a regular bash command, but in theory we could put anything here. The orange path is showing us the path in which this input takes through the application. So you can see this kind of hits a bunch of different files. And this, by the way, is what makes static analysis very different from dynamic analysis, where in dynamic analysis, we have an input and we see a result and we try to infer something about that process. Instead, we kind of work the other way around. We have some kind of process and we have to infer what we think the input and the result should be. And then we can see in the purple, this is where that actually, that code ends up, right? So when I'm reading these, this is what I'm looking at. I'm looking for, what do I have to do to cause this? I don't really care about the orange because I kind of got my start in bug bounty hunting. So we don't really care about the actual code. And then I want to be able to get to this last bit of code. Next slide, please. So again, we need to confirm that this vulnerability is real and not a false positive. Like I said, this one, as an example, was a false positive because it's something the application just allowed you to do. It was just insecure, but you've got to, if you are setting this up, it makes a lot more sense. Next slide. So how are my colleagues figuring out, how do we actually verify these? Well, my colleagues are experts in SAST and they are experts in code security. So what they do is they read the code and go, yes, looks legit, very complicated flow, needs verification, but this looks legit. I am not my colleagues. I work in marketing. The last time I read production code when I was a developer in 2017. I am a bug bounty hunter though. So while they can just define the answer from their incredibly intelligent brains, we need to work for it. Next slide. So this is where I said that my approach to hacking is very different to my colleagues because they can just read the code. I have to start up the application and I'm like, but where did this code actually come from? Where am I supposed to put this? Where's the payload? How do I configure this random application? I've never used this before. What on earth is redash? Next slide. So how do I turn SAST into a bug bounty problem? Next slide. I'm going to need some help. I am not that like egotistical to think I am the world's best hacker and I can do everything. I'm gonna need some help. So I turn to ever reliable donkey, I mean Claude. So I get Claude to download, configure, and set up each package as a Docker container so it's ready for me to test. So that way I don't have to read any documentations. Then I want Claude to look through the documentation, look at the code, and just tell me where to put it, and then write me a POC that should work, or at least that I can iterate on, so I can at least quickly check if it's a real vulnerability. Next slide. So this was my Docker setup. My first prompt was like set up redash in Docker, please. By the way, I always say please to my AI agents. I don't know why. It makes me very uncomfortable to not say please, though I have since removed the please down to PLS. So they always get a please when I am when I'm asking them to do something. But eventually, I realized I have to iterate on this. Like, how do you find the right image, make sure it's at the correct version, make sure it's the same version as the GitHub repository is, and then at the very end actually hand it off to the user. Next slide. And actually, surprisingly, it worked well. I was not expecting this to work this well. And for me, like, this was a big kind of mindset shift for me, where I was like, AI is useless, AI is pointless. But when I was then kind of in this situation where I was looking at hundreds of, like 81 vulnerabilities that I had to confirm, I was like, okay, right, I need to automate at least some of this, because otherwise I'm going to go insane. It took a lot of back and forth, especially initially. Like, oh, I can log in, but wrong email or password. I'm in, what next? Initially, I didn't actually use Docker. I just set it up locally. But honestly, this was a huge mistake. The version is really important, and Docker builds are not necessarily the current source on GitHub. But what happened was you couldn't trust Claude to do anything. There was always so much iteration, and I always needed to have some kind of output that I could actually give back to Claude, that I realized that there was no way that I was going to be able to do this like on my local machine by just pulling in the GitHub source. Even in cases where the GitHub, the Docker image wasn't the same version, I still had it set up a Docker image, because then it was really easy to turn it off as well. Next slide. And my whole goal here was essentially to get a URL. So the POC evolved over time. My initial prompt was, give me a manual test plan for this finding, and I pasted the result. It definitely evolved over time though. And I'll be honest, I had some frustration with Claude, mainly because it kept on doing the static analysis. It's like, I am not smart enough to know how static analysis works. I can't read this code, Claude. I need the dumb version. Give me the dumb version. Stop reading the source file. But eventually, it did work. Eventually, I was able to get it to actually give me a test plan and break it down into dumb little steps for my dumb little brain. Next slide. So here is some of the back and forth, and this is for an actual finding, which is why some of it is very pixelated. And it took a lot of back and forth. Like, AI cannot do this stuff the first time. I never found that doing like /goal really actually helped that much. I ended up turning it into more of like a Socratic dialogue, very academic. I ended up having a conversation to be like, okay, this is what's happening. This is the input. You are gonna, if you are using AI in this way, you are gonna have to like have a lot of back and forth, particularly when I was trying to get it to like actually read the documentation that the application provided instead of a guessing. And I had to insist a lot on, I need to use UI and burp, not curl, not the CLI. I need burp. I need like dumb people instructions. But honestly, this is again what really surprised me, because it was really good at writing POCs, like with my help. And especially for things that I'm not that experienced in, I do a lot of API testing. So I'm very familiar with access control vulnerabilities. I'm very familiar with vulnerabilities around things like authentication. I'm not that familiar with things like SSRF or remote code execution type vulnerabilities, command injection. The AI really made up for it. Like because I knew at least enough to know when AI was kind of just like hallucinating, I was actually able to get this fairly quickly. And I used it a lot as a learning experience for me as well. In fact, I don't know if anybody has been following Twitter today, but you may know that there was a CVE that was kind of released last night, for me anyway, yesterday evening, if you're in the US, that affected WordPress. And I would put my hands up. I did not know how to do remote code execution before I started this project that I'm talking about. And I actually took like one of the tools that was used in this analysis, and I actually did that on WordPress. And I was able to turn that into the like full remote code execution vulnerability like yesterday and earlier today. So you can actually also learn in part in this as well. I think it's important you don't just let AI take the wheel and you kind of stress on things like, I want to use the UI, this is how I understand, this is how I learn. But you can actually use this for learning. Next slide, please. And you're probably thinking from this, Katie, this is all going very well. Why are you anti-AI? The most frustrating thing, one is the fact you kept doing your static analysis. Two was AI was so bad at understanding whether or not something was intended functionality. Something could have been very clearly labeled as very dangerous. Do not use this. Never use this. And Claude would still insist that it's a vulnerability. And so my main function in this loop that I was having with Claude was, hey, is this actually intended, or is this a genuine vulnerability? And second of all, is this realistically exploitable? And I find this really interesting because I was having a conversation with one of my colleagues at the same time as well. And we were chatting about I was saying, oh, I don't think I'm going to report this because it's not realistically exploitable, because in bug bounty hunting, that's the bar. And he's like, oh no, we should report it because it's a vulnerable function. It doesn't matter if it's realistically exploitable, which I thought was an interesting kind of discussion around like what counts as a security vulnerability as well. So next slide. So here are some example false positives. Unfortunately, this originally had animations. I can see my animations are completely gone. But in this example, an admin user could put an SQL injection into the database. But because they were already an admin, it's not a vulnerability. They could have done that anyway. They already have access to all the data. There's nothing gained from doing that. And even though, AI had this like really strong kind of, this is a vulnerability, I had to push back quite a lot. And I had this like phase 3 in my prompt that would go and be like, if I say it is not a vulnerability, stop telling me it's a vulnerability. Do not re-explain it. Diagnose a specific issue. If I'm understanding it incorrectly, but if I'm telling you this is not a vulnerability, please just listen to me. Next slide. And at this point, I'd got an AI to do everything else. I thought, I'm not writing the report myself. While I added it, and I was like, I can't be bothered to do any of this, I really decided not to use it because I found that, one, it did a really poor job of explaining vulnerabilities, and two, I wasn't learning anything. Like, I was finding all these vulnerabilities, but I wasn't like taking into my brain like what that vulnerability meant, why it occurred. So I didn't end up like using my brain at all, except for to tell AI off. So for me, while I did have this, honestly, the only time I used this was actually to create some MD files that I could review for this talk. Next slide. So reporting the vulnerabilities. What happened when I started to report these? Next slide. This might be a Shrek video. Next slide. Okay, I'm actually not done with reporting these. I actually still have a long way to go to actually triage these original 81 findings from Drew. And some of them are like true positives, some of them are false positives, but they're false positives in the sense that like this is intended functionality. So they're not really false positives, they're true positives, but just not real vulnerabilities. I've still got 41 of these still to go through. But I have reported some of them. Next slide. So here's how it's going. I submitted this finding to cal.com, and then the day after, the day after they announced that they were closing their open source because people were finding security vulnerabilities in their project. So that's how well this is going. 2 days after I submit the findings, they kill it. I never heard back. I assume that they've probably fixed it, but I don't know. Next slide, please. But Katie, I don't have a guy called Drew sending me findings for free. How am I supposed to find these bugs? And how am I supposed to use AI? Don't worry, I got you. Next slide. There is a bunch of different ways you can find bugs. And this is my kind of like 3-step process. One is find some open source projects. There's a lot of open source projects that if you do not submit slop to, and you submit findings that you've actually used your human eyeballs and your human brain to analyze and make sure is real, they actually do want to hear from people who found security vulnerabilities. Now, ideally, do this with security disclosures that are already in place. You know, choose projects that won't sue you and that have some kind of process in place. And also, as like a tip, a lot of these vulnerabilities were found in like data apps. So like dashboard, low code, no code, where you can just like easily pull together a bunch of different data sources and produce some kind of artifact, like a report, like a dashboard. They were primarily what the AI found issues in. 2 is you can use SaaS tools. You can use security review in something like Claude. There are other tools that aren't SemGrep as well. There are open source tools that compete with SemGrep. A lot of tools like SemGrep have open source rules that you can just point at a project. You can download a set of these rules and ask LLM to use it to find vulnerabilities. Now, the kind of caveat here is a lot of the findings in this were SSRF, remote code execution, and IDOR. So if you're not familiar with those vulnerabilities already, that's where I would start as being kind of good places if you are going to have one of these workflows that has you working with AI. And 3 is to use this skill. So I have published this skill on my GitHub, and I'm going to paste that. So my keyboard has decided to stop working. That's great. I think it's out of battery. Sorry, folks. This is how you know it's live, though. And you know that the... Right, there we go. GitHub. I should have really done doing this before this slipstream, but there you go. I'm going to stick it in Ginger Hacker's chat. You can use this skill. It's completely free. Feel free to use it. This is the skill that I was using to verify all these findings. So what I had it do was get a project, have it set it up for me. So that's like part... you can see like it has like your role, then it's got phase 1, which is the Docker setup, phase 2, which is the initial POC, and then it's got the kind of write-up. Again, the write-up, not that useful. Everything else, though, very good. Like using AI for that. Next slide. And this is the skill. I've got a QR code. This QR code is definitely safe. My only request is that if you use this skill and you find a bug that you then get a bounty for, please do donate it. It would be great to be able to have more folks come and be able to take advantage of training and start their careers in cyber. And that's really the goal of this conference. Next slide. So am I a believer in AI? AI is an onion. I think the more you get into AI, the more you realize that AI isn't really what makes AI good. What really makes AI good is the squishy human at the center of it. AI alone is never going to find vulnerabilities, right? It doesn't matter how many mythos you have, you still need a human to go in and understand the context in which an application is working. So am I a believer? Honestly, I'm still not a big fan of AI. I definitely use it more now in my kind of security research / bug bounty. But I do think this project kind of changed my mind a lot. I think that while I am a believer, I'm like very specific, narrow, qualified, like lots of asterisks at the end. I think really where AI has a lot of value in kind of bug bounty and security research is kind of as a lead generator to give you ideas of what to do. I don't think AI as autonomous security researcher works, to be honest. And maybe this is harness related and I just don't have the right harness or I'm not using the right mod. Maybe. I fully accept that I do not know any, like most stuff about AI. Like I said, I'm very new to using this for this. But I think the workflow that I'm using and that I'm kind of creating for myself now is not valuable because of AI. It's valuable because I'm there thinking about this and like using my experience behind it. And I think at the core of any AI hacking methodology always needs to be a human. The human executes, verifies AI steps, but the more important role that humans play is applying that context, that deployment context, that intent, was this intended functionality, understanding the impact of a finding, going, yeah, I could see these people really care about this. And to use an example again from earlier today when I was looking at this WordPress finding, when I sent the finding first to AI very confidently told me this was a false positive, that this was not a vulnerability, that the report was overblown, and that it was complete hype and no speculation, and there was no way the POC would work. And then it took me looking at it and going, oh, I need more than one of these. Like the AI is doing one, I need more than one of them to get the exploit to work. So while again, I think that AI can be a very helpful tool, you still got to have the squishy human center. Thank you very much, everybody, for listening to me yak about AI. Happy to take any questions. Oh, I should say, this is the final scene of Shrek where it plays I'm a Believer, and it's the marriage ceremony. Now you've watched at least all of Shrek 1. Here's how you can find me over the internet.
Katie, I will not lie, I love your Shrek-themed presentation as well. And I think almost on top of the amazing conversation, your breakdown of the videos that didn't play, like, and no, this is what happened, like, what are you doing in the swamp? It was just, I heard it in my head and it was super funny. So
it's great.
This was amazing and fantastic.
When the technology fails, right? I'm thinking about it now. I picked like a kind of outdoory background because it's actually quite sunny here today. And I was like, it's nice in nature. I should have picked a swamp. I should have just picked something from Shrek.
Well, we have some time for some questions before we kick you loose. So I guess my first question, Katie, is, has this kind of always been a passion? And I obviously know leveraging and using AI, because it's the big hype right now. It's the new buzzword for all companies even. And I agree with you where it's like there's some pros, I think, into it, but I think there's also still a lot of cons, and having that human in the middle is a huge important piece of it. What really drove you to kind of get into this, leveraging it to help you kind of do these bug bounties? Was it specifically that message
panic.
from Drew?
It's because the founder of the company sent me a Slack message and asked me to do it. And I was like, he's the founder of the company. And I realized there was no way I was going to be able to do that and all the other work I had to do. So I used to be a lecturer at a university, like a professor, and I would always have students who would panic and then turn to AI. So I did the same thing they did. I panicked and I turned to AI in a time of need. And isn't that just representational of all of us? Now I do it with a bit more intention though. though. Like, I learned a lot from doing this. I did this like a few months ago. So I have learned a lot more now, and the way I use Claude hasn't really changed, but it's less panicked now. Now I'm like, I
Yeah.
wonder what Claude would say in this situation, or I wonder what I'm missing, or I wonder what I don't know about. And the questions I ask Claude have also changed as well. It's very much me trying to better my understanding than to try and skip my understanding to just get Claude to produce a POC.
So I have a few questions here coming in through chat. Have you gone to the Shrek play?
I have not, but you know what? I have seen the advertisement for it in London. I really wanted to go. There was a HackerOne live event that was happening the same week as the Shrek play, and I was very desperate. But this was many years ago now.
All right, I have another one here saying, Katie, congrats on the truck. How are you going to make it look different from the black cab?
Okay, for everybody else, I had a week.
I don't know the context.
The context is I had a week off of work, and my brain was like, I'm so security pilled now that I can't like take a week off of work without actually taking a week off of work. So I got very interested in cars, specifically niche Japanese cars, because I like how boxy they look. And I found out about this car. It's called a BB Open Deck. It's basically a pickup truck that is tiny. It's like a K car size pickup truck. The truck bed is like 3 feet. It's this tiny truck. It's great. And I became obsessed with it. And so I bought one. I've never bought a car.
I'm gonna drop an image. I just
I feel like everyone should see the BB Open Deck.
That is awesome.
But they come in yellow. Like the default color is yellow, and I've got a black one. But I'm going to get it resprayed yellow, I think. Resprayed or maybe wrapped. I don't know. It depends on budget. Hey, that's the car I bought as well. That's the actual car.
Oh my gosh, is it really?
Yeah. Shout out the Car Warehouse. Fantastic guys. They import cars into the UK from Japan.
Wow, that's actually really cool. Yeah, I saw that. That is a funny looking truck. That borderline wants me to almost look into that of how I get that to the US. That is
you know what? So they turned 25 years old. This is why this truck is so hard. It turned 25 years old this year. So they can now be imported into the US. So a bunch of Americans are buying them. And I had to fight an American for this truck. Somebody else, it was manufactured in November, so they had to wait until November so they could import it into the US. Anyway, I'm getting into car hacking. That's my next goal. I've literally got a box full of car hacking supplies.
Oh, that's so cool.
An old car as well. It reminds you can do things. I asked Claude. Claude helped me.
No, I mean, the thing is, like with AI coming more and more into the day in life of every job that you can probably think of, no matter if it's even physical security of them using drones to help them fly around and find stuff. It's just like, make it your helper assistant and make your job easier. I don't think there's any issues with that. We're unable to see it, Ginger Hacker. Oh, okay. I'll find a way to share that link in the video. Let me see. Okay, we'll find ways. Because, it's definitely, if you also just look up the BB Open Deck. Here, I'll drop this. This is what I did to find it. Just BB Open Deck. And if you go to Google and type that in, you will quickly find the truck we were talking about. It is very interesting and pretty cool, actually. But Katie, a few more questions for you. So, any plans on making it to Black Hat or DEF CON in Vegas this year?
Hell yeah! I'm gonna be at B-Sides Las Vegas representing CyberLab. Nice. Come down to the booth. I have some really cool stickers that I'm working on for work. And if people show up, it means that I'll get credit at work for doing them. I'm also going to be at Black Hat as well. I will also be representing SemGrep. And I will also be at DEF CON, but I'm doing some talks at DEF CON. I'm going to be at the IoT Village talking about e-reader hacking. And I'm going to talk about this thing. This is an X4, which is a ESP32 based e-reader. I'm going to explain how to start developing for it. I'm talking about jailbreaking Kindles. I'm going to be at the Game Hacking Village doing a talk about Habbo Hotel. And private server emulation, and I'm gonna be at the Bug Bounty Village talking more about AI slop. and how we turned bug bounty reports into SEMGRAP rules to help reduce slop. So lots of talk
That's
to DEF
awesome.
CON.
Okay, a few more questions coming in. What inspired you to do this research? I think you kind of answered that one already. It was the panic
Very
message
much.
from your boss.
Very much that, but I think the reason why I'm still doing it, which might be a more interesting question, is that when I initially joined SEMGRAP, I'm not gonna lie, I totally did not understand what static analysis was. I totally
Okay.
thought it was regex expressions over code, and I was like, this is like, I wasn't like in a point where I just didn't really understand it, right? So like I knew it was important. I knew that lots of customers liked it. I knew that it's important for security research, but I don't think I really understood how it worked until I worked at SEMGRAP. And for me, like, I don't like not knowing things. I really want to be the kind of person who understands how systems come together. So what really motivates me to continue on doing this is that I really enjoy like getting better at things like static code analysis. Like, I've learned a ton about how to take a SAS like report, this taint analysis, and turn it into a vulnerability. And before, I didn't really know how to do that, and I'm getting better and better, and I can see myself improving and really understanding. And I just find that I enjoy my job a lot more. I feel more informed, and that's really why I keep going. And I think AI is really helpful
Awesome.
for that.
No, very cool. Well, I'm going to be also at all three, so I'm definitely going to make sure I come by and say hi. And
Please do.
also make sure I hand you one of our awesome Ginger Hacker Initiative stickers.
I will make sure you get
this has
swag.
been such a, oh, yay. Yeah, this has been, I've loved this talk. I think so far, it's so early in the day, but definitely one of my favorite talks so far. So, Katie, thank you so much for coming on. We're going to make our next pivot to, or hopefully our next presenter if they get in here soon. But my last question for you before I kick you loose, what's your final advice to someone maybe trying to break into this field specifically?
Ooh, I would say learn stuff broadly. I think the biggest mistake you can make in cybersecurity as a whole is thinking that you only need to know like one narrow subset. You will be shocked at how general cybersecurity is. Like, you have to quickly become somebody who's okay reading code. You have to quickly become somebody who's okay jumping into Mmap and running a port scan and understanding it. You need to be someone who's really like happy to go and go to a CEO and say, hey, we've got a security problem here. You end up becoming like this kind of jack of all trades. And I think the biggest mistake you can make is saying, that's not my job. Like, my job is X, Y, and Z, and that's it. I think if you want to get into cybersecurity, you've got to like get over the idea that your job is a certain thing, because and even this is outside of AI as well, right? This is just in general, cybersecurity is really broad. And at the end of the day, there is so much here. And I think that's great, because you can also kind of explore what actually interests you. But I think you've got to learn broadly. You've got to be prepared to put in the work. And sometimes you're going to find yourself speaking to Claude about Toyota parts to figure out how you can hack your car. And that is the beauty of InfoSec.
All right, Katie, this was such an amazing talk. I'm so excited. I'm so excited we have to have you on. And no, we will see you here in the next under 30 days at B-Sides Vegas, Black Hat, and DEF CON.
Oh, don't remind me.
Please make sure you guys swing by and say hi. Yes, it's going to be organized chaos. Well,
sure.
Katie, I'm going to let you get some time back in your day. But yeah, thank you guys so much for staying tuned. And Katie, I'm going to go ahead and push you back on the back end channel, and we will talk later. All right, everybody. Well, we are kind of still waiting for our next presenter. So while we are filling that gap, I'm going to throw up some QR codes real quick and quickly fill in some holes. So as you guys remembered, we are here for an amazing reason today, and that is to support the next gen nonprofit that's helping our next generation of folks break into cyber. Now, don't forget, the name of the game today is we are working on getting to our 5K goal, and the way that you can help with that is by scanning this QR code right here, donating $5, and what that is going to do is put you in for a raffle to win some amazing prizes. There's some courses, there's some vouchers, there's some awesome cool swag. And another fun fact is with the first 100, let me see if this one's at, there we go. With the first 100 folks, we have means of also getting the backdoors and breaches on top of raffle sponsor of Mastermind. If you donate $5 for a chance to win one of 5 vouchers for the certified lead auditor. So tons of amazing things going on today. And on top of that, we also have swag. And this right here is a 25% off for 25% of the profits being donated directly to the next gen cyber ed. So if you are looking for your next CyberSock hoodie, this is the place to get it. Scan the QR codes, make sure you check that out. And there we go. And yeah, make sure that we continue to kind of help and we push through. Going to do a quick spot check on what our donation number is looking at so far. It is amazing. We're at $700. That is 14% of the way where we need to be. So let's all work together on getting to that $5,000 goal. And as we wait for our next presenter, I'm going to push you guys over to track 2 that I believe is still currently going on with the Cyberspeak Labs channel while we wait for our next presenter to come on. So please stay tuned and make sure you keep your notifications and chats on, because I know we're going to take 2 different channels today. But as our talks and presenters keep coming on, stay tuned under the schedule. Once we go back live again too, we will get this stream up and running again. So, all right, everybody, I will see you guys here in a little bit. Oh, if I can get it to work. Hold on. All right, there we go. Hello.